Before I get to the video, I got thinking about Connie mentioning that Cliff used the army blanket because he's very patriotic. And I want to say that while that's what most people's mentality and understanding of what patriotism is, it's bad and disturbing. Patriotism is defined as devotion and vigorous support for one's country, not war. If war is that devotion and support for the country, America in this case, then Americans really need to get their head checked, because war is killing and destruction. If that's what America is about, you Americans are sick. This is especially strange because Metallica is not a fan of war.
My flesh is dying. Oh, I gotta have a cigarette. I gotta have a cigarette. Oh, God, help me. And that is a very simple way, a very general way that I can put of what dying to the flesh is. Of course, there's a lot more to it. You can go.
I know God only created Adam and Eve according to this religion, but I'll refer to us also as God's creation for the sake of simplicity. Why do you worship this God who created us with a mortal body that decays over time, and that also dies? I mean, life that decays and then dies. How are those good, and why do you approve? Why don't you expect everything from an all-powerful creator? Or, I guess the more accurate question would be, why do you accept so little from this creator, and preach to everybody else to also accept it?
To your Holy Bible, look in the back in your concordance, and look up flesh, and you will come to the parts where it speaks of dying to the flesh. And what it is letting go of this material world, basically, and going with God. I was in the middle of bowling.
What's the afterlife if it isn't material? While materialism is bad, which is what God created, we all have material pleasures. But why would we want to leave it to be with God if we like it, but God does not?
And I was on the lane. I was out bowling with the ball in my hand. I stopped in the middle of making my way to the line where you let go of the ball. And I turned around to the three people I was with. I said, I have to go call home. I put the ball back in the rack. They said, well, Connie, it's your turn. You're going to hold up the whole game. I said, well, that's too bad. I have to go to the phone. So I went and I called home, and my mother answered. And as soon as she said hello, I just knew. And I said, it's Cliff, right? And she said, yeah. And I said, he's dead, right? And she said, yeah. And she said, I think you better come home right now. We had been out all night partying and such like that, and then decided to go bowling. And it was 9 o'clock in the morning. So I had to go back, and we left the bowling alley. Cliff and I both knew that this tour that he was going on, I pleaded with him not to go, to call in sick. I'm laughing because it's like Metallica, right? He's going to call in, I'm too sick to go, I can't go, right? I begged him to call in.
Because the responsibility is Cliff's to avoid this tour, and not God for creating mortal life, right? Something which you had this mysterious prophetic idea that Cliff would lose his life during. You obviously don't like death, but you love God.
Just don't go this one time. This one time. He looked at me and he said, I know exactly what you mean, but I have to go. It's my job. He shook his head like this and just looked down. And he said, I love you, Con. That was the last time I saw him. That was at the airport when that happened. He knew he had done things which I will share in the book. He had done quite a few things that lets you know that a person is not returning or something is amiss greatly.
Again, God isn't the bad guy. Death is just how it is. You do realize you are denying Cliff of his deliverance to God's kingdom by discouraging him from this tour, also resisting God. Doesn't sound like you believe this death thing.
So I really pray to God that those men have worked out Cliff's death. And if you haven't, do it. Just do it. It'll cleanse and clear your heart.
Why pray to the being who caused the problem, as you acknowledge that death obviously is a problem? Such hypocrisy here, assigning people the responsibility while God is the one who caused the fucking problem. In this material world which you speak very lowly of.
Cliff just was in his element. God put them all really in their element. They're all very good musicians and very young. So
God initially put Cliff in his musicianship element, only to put him into his death element? By such a violent and tragic means, by the way.
If James, Kirk, and Lars, and I'll include Robert, although I've never met him, were here right now, what would I say to them? What would I like to say to them? I would like to say, I love you all. I love you, Kirk. I love you, James. I love you, Lars. I would like people to know that Lars, whether he did, besides the Napster thing, okay, and him being the one to go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to put a stop to this. He was the one who was by my side when I was at my worst, hitting bottom, and drugs and alcohol.
I've gone back to the beginning of this video, remembering that Connie had mentioned that God puts people into a position of fame and wealth. Turns out she said God put Cliff into his element. So, I can't remember who made the fame and wealth comment, but Connie's drug and alcohol problem was prior to Cliff's death, which is what the old film effect is about back there. Connie doesn't talk about her substance problem, so I can't comment on or question that, other than to say that Connie is obviously mentally weak, and she somehow believes the Bible is a better crutch than substance abuse. I guess because religion doesn't make people feel physically sick.
Nobody knew what to do with me. I mean, including Ozzy. He was saying I was crazy. And if Ozzy says you're crazy, okay, something's gone haywire here. No offense, Ozzy, but he's a free soul. I have to say that about Lars. I owe special thanks to him, and I love him dearly for when he couldn't handle me anymore, that he handed me over to his personal assistant, whose name is Stephen Wigg, and it fit perfect with the state of mind that Connie Burton was in, which was Wigg. It's no accident that God put Stephen Wigg there. He brought in kindness, compassion, dignity, and respect at a time when that in my life was at an all-time low, if it even existed. Stephen would call me and check in on me and make sure I was okay and ask me what I wanted to do, what help did I need.
So, you credit God for putting you into somebody else's care, while God is the one who was responsible for the mortal and age-decaying flesh body, and also for bad states of mind, which is why you were in that rock-bottom low. Why were you ever at a low? What does God have to do with any of this, if you don't believe God is at fault for it?
I was so messed up, I didn't have it in me to say, I need to go to rehab. I was just too far gone. Really, in my mind, I had gone insane. Was not dealing with sanity. So my decision making and my judgment was way out of whack.
The question would be why you started taking the drugs and drinking. Rehab is nothing unless you establish the psychology behind it all first. You need mental stability to completely recover in order to prevent a relapse.
Say to the guys is I love you all. I would like the relationship to be a relationship. I would love it to change. And I ask for their forgiveness for anything that I may have done or said in my addiction that would have offended them or harmed them in any way. Because that I certainly did not mean to do. I thought I was gaining 3 brothers, and I lost 4. It's not funny, but that's my way of covering up. I'm human too. So instead of crying and picking up this box of tissues that's by Kleenex, I just want to say thank you to all of them also for going on in life and becoming the musicians they have become. I'm very proud of them. So I know them from when they were in their 20s, early 20s. What kind of men they have turned out to be, I do not know. At this point in time, I just say God.
But this is only a material world that is infested with sin, a deathly and decaying existence that is meaningless, because God is all that matters, despite this same God causing it all.